Good morning. We're going to begin now a brand new Sikha, printed in the Chelek Chaf, volume 20, page 100. And this is a beer on the explanation of the first Rashi, or the second Rashi in the Chumash, in this week's Parsha. Let us begin. In the beginning of the Parsha where it says, and these are the children of Yitzchak when Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. So bring Rashi was Chazal Zagan. Rashi brings what Chazal tell us. This is a Tanchuma in Bava Metzia. Rashi says, Zagan Ayuleitzane Adar, the jokers of the generation Emnim, they said, Avimelech Nesabra Sarah, that Avimelech conceived Sarah, made Sarah pregnant. Why? Because, like Rashi says over there, it's impossible for many years Avram and Sarah were together, and Avram never got Sarah pregnant. So Mitzvah Mol, she got pregnant, it must be from Avimelech. So Ma'as HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so what did Hashem do? So our cluster punter for Yitzchak, he made Yitzchak's facial expressions look exactly like Avram, and everybody now testified that Avram was the one who bore Yitzchak. And the Baal Turim says something very interesting, that Hoylid is B'matri Adayim. So they looked very, very similar in facial features. Now, the Rebbe says, Darben Verstehen, we have to understand. Since the Chazal ask in a way of question, what did Hashem do? Tzor, he made the facial expressions. Now, Rashi should have just said that the Tzara were making fun of him, and what Hashem do? Hashem tzar cluster panav. On the Verta Ma'as HaKadosh Baruch Hu, these words of Ma'as HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a little bit extra. Why does Rashi have to say that? It's mashma, it's understood. As in them, in from tzar cluster panav is das piatzela uftu. At this, that Hashem made the facial expressions look exactly like Avram. It's something very specific. Ma'as HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'tmiyah. So the question is, I'm sorry, I skipped. Is da spezielle Uftung? Und der Fall steht, das Beloschen Shana Masakalish Bracha mit mir. Was the Eberste speziell getan zu bewahren to the Taina from the Tzanadar, which means that what did Hashem do to squash the defamation of the Tzanadar. So the Rebbe says it's perplexing. In was besteht der besondere Aufteil von Zer Cluster Panav von Yitzchak dem Avram? Es ist doch ein Dover aber Piteva, als Ben ist dem Avram. Es darf sein Sibis Micholis also sein nicht bedemmen. So the Rebbe says, what's the chiddush about Hashem making Yitzchak's facial appearance resemble Avram? After all, a son naturally resembles his father. Only special circumstances prevent a son from not resembling his father. So it's mashma that Hashem had to do something very unique and special to make Yitzchak's face look like Avram. Why? Why did Hashem have to make it? It's a very normal thing that a son looks like his father.
It's a nitzah with them.
Well,
As thou say, see this me chodesh.
It's a nitzah with them. Yeah, there has to be special reasons why he's not similar. Which means it's a davar aragol that things that a son looks like a father. The Rebbe says that das verstehen Leute im Bier in dem Moschen Chazal, was Chazal sagen, bescheid es zu kamen in Yonim, als seinen koshek kriyas yamsu. As eichli gabe Kadosh Baruch Hu is his koshek kriyachol. Understand this by clarifying what Chazal say that certain points says about kriyas yamsu, it says about a shidduch, it says about parnasa. So it says that they are difficult as kriyas yamsub, as the splitting of the sea. As eizli gabe Kadosh Baruch Hu is kosher kriyachol, which means that these acts are also difficult to Hashem to reform, so to speak. So you do it as but in them. So it's known the explanation. As the kosher for kriyas yamsub steht beikir nit in them, was der yam is nikre geworden, und in them was der noch is given nitzav kameinate. So it's known that the explanation that is that the idea, that it's difficult for Hashem, like the difficulty of the splitting of the Yamsu, was not primarily splitting the sea and then making the water stand upright as a wall. That's not difficult for Hashem. or Frat Lefiyam Mavur in Tanya, especially as explained in Tanya, as Kriyas Yamsuf is a cleaner Pelav Shemayim Oretz, is the Chavada nit Shayach to Zogan Dafka of them, kosher, as explained in Tanya, especially that the Yamsuf was a much smaller wonder than the creation of heavens and earth. So it certainly does not, it's certainly not apropos to say that Yamsuf was specifically difficult for Hashem. So what does it mean, kosher? No, in them was by Kriyas Yamsuf, Zayin Geven, Tzvei Hofchim Biachad. Rather, because you had the difficulty arose by the Kriyas Yamsuf, that it had two opposite phenomena. You had Rofu Yisrael V'Nogo from Mitzrayim. You had the healing of the children of Bnei Yisrael, and at the same time, Hashem smiting the Egyptians. Warum? When der Yam wollte sich nicht gespalten, wollte mit sie miteinander them. Why? Because had the sea not split, the Egyptians would not have entered in it. So the only reason why the Egyptians entered in the Yamsuf is because they saw that the Yamsuf being split for the Yidden, so they tagged along. Shas has been decided hat geteinet. And this was at the time when the Midas Adin, the attribute of strict justice, claimed, how are these Yidden different from the Egyptians? They worship Avodah Zarah, and they worship Avodah Zarah. My time is kosher. And for this reason, it's difficult for Hashem. Why? Because according to the perspective of attribute of strict justice must be considered. And at the splitting of the sea, we did not reckon, we did not consider, we did not even listen to what Midas Adin has to say. So, basically, what we explained so far in Beis, that we'll understand this by first prefacing what does it mean that things are difficult for Hashem. What does it mean kosher for Hashem, like Kriyas Yamsuf? So it doesn't mean that it was difficult for Hashem to split the sea and make the sea make a path there and have a firm wall in between the path. This Kriyas Bria Shemayim words is a lot more difficult for Hashem. So the pshat is by Kriyas Yamsuf we had two polar opposites, you had two phenomena going on at the same time. The Yidden were getting healed, and at the same time the Mitzrayim were getting struck. And the only reason why the Mitzrayim got struck is because the sea was being split. So, and this is at the time that the meat of attribute of Gvura was timing and saying there, but there's a. So why is it kosher? Why is it difficult for Hashem? Because I'll be said there we have to listen to what Midas Adin says. Excuse me. Gimel. So similar in our case, we can explain as follows. Says Yidua, it's known that Chiluk between Avram and Yitzchak. There's no difference between Avram and Yitzchak. Avram is given Avram Oyabai, and Merkava to Midas HaChesed, and therefore is given Avodas Midas Chasad B'Achmasas Archim. So it's known that Avram and Yitzchak, basically, they had very, very different personalities. They personified different attributes. Avram is referred to as Avram who loved me. Avram was a Merkava to kindness. Therefore, his Avodah involved performing acts of kindness and having this and having guests. Well, Yitzchak is given Pachad Yitzchak and Merkava to Midas HaGvura. But therefore, as Avodah is given Chafiris Beidus, Arapnam the Erd in Steiner was an Mechasev Mein Mayin Megalazan Mayim Chaim Anevim Mata Lamaila. Now, Yitzchak, he portrayed as a Merkava the attribute of Gvura. Therefore, his Avodah involved digging wells. He was excavating earth and the stones, covering a wellspring beneath and revealing living waters that flow upwards from below to above. So, bunch of the personalities, they were different people, and they had different Avodahs in the world. When the fire is dark, ich bin get to Yotzim Mimenu, Yinikas Chitzenim, Vidas is Mitzad Kavach Chesed from Avram, Vidas is from Kavach Gvura for Yitzchak. And that's why there's also a difference in what emerged from each of them. In other words, the spiritual nature or the forces of negativity. Also, a difference between what emerged from Avram, which Avram Yotzim and Yishmael, and which is Chesed the Klippa, and Yitzchak Yotzim and Esau, Afar B'Chatichya, Gvura the Klippa. However, Avram, who emerged from Avram, the Klippa, was Yishmael emerged, which he was the Chesed of the Klippa. And Yitzchak, Esau emerged, whom it says, by your sword you shall live, which is Gvura of Klippa. So,
what do you say by Yishmael?
He was very
Chesed. He said the Tifke is Isa Gvura.
Right. It says in the Gemara that Yishmael was he was klipa, but he was kind. He wasn't, the Arabic Kazen also was very, very loving and very charming and very, also Kavil al Chesed, but it was Chesed of klipa.
He was like the Stein, for his mind was there.
Yishmael?
And yeah, there was something about that in the last year.
Mm-hmm. So the Gemara brings it from Softian, from Iker Rabbo. Brings it down from the Tzemach Tzedek over there, Erech Yishmael. So that's what brings the Yishmael's idea of Chesed Klip, like Yitzchak is the idea, and Esau's idea of Gvura Klip. And das is einer from the beautiful verse that Pasuk Dav Zogan and Dafke da Avram Hilus Yitzchak. And that's what the Torah has to emphasize specifically here, that Avram fathered Yitzchak. Now the Chir is this verstanden, it's not understood. Aleph, der Heflich zu sagen Avram Hilus Yitzchak is nor rather Pasuk der Mann früher Yitzchak ben Avram. Und wie Rashi ist mefarish Aidei Shekosov HaKosov Yitzchak ben Avram Huskak Lamer. Now, what's the reason? What's the hechus to say that Avram gave birth to Yitzchak? Is since the Torah at the beginning said Yitzchak ben Avram, so the Torah had to say Avram Hilus Yitzchak. And this is what Rashi says. Kemen auf der Ruf Gufa Fragen, so you can ask the Wörter ben Avram up in the Chir nicht gedarf stehen, weil das Beis ben Shein from the Friede Gesetzes. Now, we already know that Yitzchak is the son of Avram. We know this from previous portions. Uvemela, so if I don't have to say that Yitzchak is the son of Avram, automatically I don't have to say Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. You could just say, if I eat Yitzchak on our Barim Shana, you could say clearly that right away that Yitzchak was 40 years old when he married Rivka. So that's question number 1. Question number 2 is, Farvos is the Tatum Menamis, the Barbornish, if Tainus the son of Ershton Pashas Toldos. Why does the Torah allude to the allegations of the jokers of that generation? Dafkin in Parshat Toldos was that's a beikir wegen Toldos Yitzchak. Yaakov Esav when they Toldos Moros Yitzchak Yitzchak ben Avram where der month plays derech Agav. What are we talking about over here? We're talking about the children of Yitzchak who are Yaakov and Esav, and this whole thing of mentioning that Yitzchak got married at 40 was derech Agav. If you look in the Torah. Das hat gedarf stehen in der Friede Gesetzes, wo es letztlich wegen des Yitzchak. This had to say in the previous parsha, and this is the Gorari, the Alshach, they all ask, this had to be said in the parsha beforehand when it speaks about when Yitzchak was born. So why does it say dafke? Nor the beer in them is for Lashon HaKosuv. So what's the explanation? Is because it says ve'ela Toldos Yitzchak. It doesn't say ela Toldos Yitzchak. It says ve'ela Toldos Yitzchak, which means von Lashon HaKosuv ve'ela Toldos Yitzchak kuli b'davav ha'meisiv is mochus as the parsha kum b'avshach sefir. So by saying and, the vav is ha'meisiv. So it's a continuation of what we said in the previous parsha. Was that's Yishmael, which last week's parsha ended off with speaking about Yishmael. We bald as Yishmael is ben Avram, and since Yishmael is the son of Avram, Ba'adram on the contrary, Begila Yishmael mer shaykhis. When you look, the Chayda Yishmael is more of a shaykhis to Avram. The Chayda to Avram, the Yitzchak to Avram. Why? By Yishmael is bekav hachesed, as if Avram, nor is chesed deklipo, or a nevzich from Avram b'derech yasim men are for him. If you look at who has more of a similarity in personalities, who's similar in personalities to Avram is Yishmael. Avram is chesed dekdusha, and Yishmael is chesed deklipa. Well, Yitzchak is bekav ha'gvura, hepech from kav hachesed, and Yitzchak, his personality, his modality is a gvura, which is opposite to chesed. So now, the Rebbe darf sagen, Orich by Yitzchak as Eres ben Avram. That's why when we mention about Yitzchak, it has to say Yitzchak ben Avram. Or noch Mesu sein Avram Hilus is Yitzchak. And you have to say also that Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. And Adrabah, the Yachas from Yitzchak to Avram is Gorbei from Yuchad. This connection that Avram to Yitzchak is very special. Not only is Yitzchak ben Avram, not only is Yitzchak the son of Avram, Avram Hoylus is Yitzchak. In them is Bashtan and Iker and Yonah from Avram. As they be stated in Pasuk, Yitzchak Dafki Yikar Lechazara. So what is this Torah? The Torah is saying that the Torah has to say Yitzchak is Avram's son, and even add Avram fathered Yitzchak, because on the contrary, the relationship between Yitzchak and was unique. Not only was Yitzchak the son of Avram, but Avram fathered Yitzchak. Yitzchak was Avram's primary child, as it says, since through Yitzchak will offsprings be considered yours. And as the Ramban says, why does it say only Toldos? Because It's saying that Elo Toldos Yitzchak, that Avram had many children. As we learned last week's parasha, he had Asa, he had Ishmael, and he had Yitzchak, and he had another 6 children afterward. But what does it say? Avram Toldos Yitzchak, that who's the child of Avram is Yitzchak. High time, man. For this reason, and that's why the Torah makes it clear at the beginning of Parshas Toldos. B'shas melech as Toldos Yitzchak is Esav. When we learn that the Tolda, the child of Yitzchak is Esav, wurde the Klippe canal. Oleikar v'dasim urosav Yitzchak is Chafirs beers heaven from Avedis Avram. So now that we're learning about Yitzchak's child was Esav, who personified Gvura of Klippe as discussed above. And Yitzchak's primary Aveda was digging wells, the opposite of Avram's Aveda. So that was very toikev atayim for inside there. So once this happens, then the clown's slander is even stronger. As Yitzchak nitkein shayach with Avram, Yitzchak has no connection to Avram. Or mindav shelo. So now you have to be shelo. Now that Avram, Yitzchak ben Avram had this Yitzchak. So now that Avram became. Now that Yitzchak bore Ishmael, and Yitzchak and Ishmael, their personalities are very similar. So now the question comes even stronger. How is it possible for Avram? What's the connection to Avram and Yitzchak?
Usually refer to
No. Und das ist die Schwierigkeit, der Meilik of Yochel in Zerklaster Partner for Yitzchak day with Avram. This is also why it was difficult for Hashem, so to speak, to make Yitzchak's facial appearance resemble Avram. Das was Ben is David Aviv is mitzad dem was der Ben nimmt sich von Ab mit Gufim mit Shmasei as demet zu ihm mit Gufim mit Tchunasei mit Tchunas Nafshei. This is what it says in Tanya. The Rambam brings us down in Tanya that the fact that a son resembles his father is because the son is a product of his father's body and the soul. Their bodies and personalities, therefore, are very similar. Now, das was Ben aber Avram Yitzchak wie bald as betchunas nafsho. However, Avram and Yitzchak had opposite personalities. Avram is given von midas chesed. Yitzchak von midas gvura. Avram he personified the attribute of chesed. And Yitzchak gvura umitzad dem zayin ze given chilukim eich besichlam. That's why they're very different also in their intellect, the seichel, like it's known between the difference between Bishamai and Basil. As mitzadim chilik b'shor sheidish nashmalsum, and again cholok b'sichlam. Why is every time Bisham and Basil argue? What is this? A game over? You say Osra, I say Mutter. No, but because in their personalities, in their sheidish nashmalsum, they were very, very different. So since their souls, the essence of the souls, and the source of their souls were polar opposites, so therefore the way they thought, the way they think, also was polar opposite. Bishamai was a strict guy. Basil was Lakula. So if Avram is the idea of Chesed and Yitzchak is the idea of Gevura, so Bisham Basilo, so the had to come up with Gashmias that their facial expressions look very different. The way a person looks, also you can tell a person he has a very serious face. Usually a person with a very serious face is a strict guy. He's a guy who's, you could tell also a person, you could tell very much on just by looking at somebody what type of tchuna he has. Why? Because the man upon him is very connected with the tchuna of the nefesh. That's what's brought down in right? It says in Kehelas Chachmas Adam Tar Panav. So we see that it has a very big connection. Abal Chesed is b'sever panim yafis. Yes, somebody who's Chesed, he looks for Chesed. Abal Kavura with ashtrengel upon him. However, somebody who has a very who's very strict, he has a very stern face. So now, so now the question is, now we can understand what does it mean? What did Hashem do? Was far an eitzes farnan zum bevornen die Tana von Litzana der Ribalas mit der Tebe vasid darf Avram Yitzchak sein hofrim beklaste panap. So now we can understand what did Hashem do. It expresses the wonder, what possible solution was there to refute the slander of the jokers? After all, according to the natural order, the parents of Avram and Yitzchak's faces should have been different to mirror the two contrary modes of conduct. Chesed and Gvura. Is Osa Kaddish Baruch Adav Chiddush Hebechat Vasid Edalin to class the Baruch Shel Yitzchak. However, since the Tzani Adar alleged that Sarah became pregnant from Avram, the Eibishter did a chiddush, counter to the natural order. He alone made Yitzchak's facial appearance resemble Avram. Yeah, okay. Hey. Sie ist verstandig euch bepasst, as das was the sparkle zur cluster butterfly Yitzchak David Avram. So now it's also understood that when it says that Hashem made Yitzchak's facial appearance resemble Avram, is given nit blois as gashmistige oizen soll sein bedem. And not only that the physical appearance, the way they look, should look similar, but the contrary. Das was the Zan given deme, is that they were similar, is there gashmistige. Das was the Zan given deme in their gashmistige zir is weil sehr klar past class the pun of is given deme. So this that the fact that Hashem made their facial expressions look alike begashmi is because Baruch was like that. Now, how is that possible? This is This is based. This is based of an idea explained in several places. Now, even though the relationship between Chesed and Gevura are opposite, however, here the attribute of Chesed over here. The outcome. You see, the Chesed and Gevura are opposite, but over here, when we're talking about Gevura Yitzchak, that's a continuation and an outcome of the Chasadim of Avram. We need nor while the Sibba for Gevura is Chesed. Chesed will doch as the Ashpoz on the Skala Brian or Reiv Teva in Yechelim Mekabel. What was the Zayin idea? Gevura Tzimtzum Hashefa. Now, Chesed wants to have Ashba, right? The attribute of Chesed is interested to have this influx to be received. However, the overabundance of goodness cannot be contained. So therefore, it's necessary to accomplish this transfer specifically by having the Gevura, which that keeps restrict. That's the Keli. Nor Nochmer, even more so. Muzayin idea Gevura with Tzimtzum Hashefa Daf. Nor noch even more. So the Gevuras Yitzchak zijn aan inje van Chesed begillen. Door die Gevuras Davke tut sich auf Aribe with the Sefes Bashbak. You do have a Pirush. Gevuras Kshamim was der Farsteht ben Yitzchak va'arbe Zarei v'etelei Yitzchak. Now, Yitzchak's Gevura were a sort of revealed Chesed. Specifically through Gevuras, can there be this increase of Chesed, as it's known about the idea of Gevuras Kshamim. For this reason, it says regarding Yitzchak, I multiplied his seed and I gave him Yitzchak. What are these scholars from Chesed Avram? What are the Yitzchak? Nemsach mitzad l'mayla mitzad mitzad yishtalshos mitzad them hezal chibur from Avram. Now, this combination of Avram, Chesed, Yitzchak, Svura comes from a place that transcends the creation. As such, the joining of the opposites is made possible. Der mitvet min euch verstehen dem Nemes in Lashon Chazal veidu hakel Avram edus is Yitzchak. Now, in light of this, we can also explain this, what the Toldos says. Everyone attested Avram, father Yitzchak. Now, nit v'yedu ukudema nor v'eidu. Rashi chazet iber dem loshna tzveidemol edus yesh Avram edus is Yitzchak. Was is that goshen dem? What is the had goshen done dem inge von edus? Now, it says everyone attested, and Avram gave father Yitzchak. It doesn't say everyone knew or that like, but it says they gave edus, attested. And Rashi repeats this expression. From there, for there is testimony that Avram fathered Yitzchak. So the question is, why is such an emphasis placed upon this being an edus, a testimony? What's the explanation? Edus is shar dafke chadover anelam. If I dover agole, afilo if I milsa David legluya, dafne kin edus netaber. Now, what is testimony? Testimony means is given specifically about something unknown. You don't need to testify about something obvious or even something that will become known, right? The Gemara says, "Let me shakri inchi." So, what's edus? Edus is something that without the aid you wouldn't know before. Usually, this is edus b'mammon. That says, "Edus v'adimshach when it's gala inyan was mitzad atzmi yisrael ma'alim migat dilei lo, which means that the idea of testimony, it discloses something that was inherently beyond revelation, something that would otherwise not become revealed. Beruchnius is the Amshach from the Malam Yishtalshus. Now, Beruchnius in spiritual terms, this refers to a place which is higher than the idea of Seder Shlashlos. Und das ist Bereden Didan, the Remes in Edus. And this is the meaning of testimony in our Pasha. Das was Avram Yitzchak. This that Avram gave birth to Yitzchak, which means he scholars Chesed Gevura, that you had this combination of Chesed Gevura, because you had this level, Hamshach, this flow higher than Seder Shlashlos. Leute, wenn wir sagen, kann es nicht sein. Es hat kein Ordnung. Es ist aber Edus Yishkan. Now, Mitzad Teva, it's impossible for Chesed and Gevura to combine. But Mitzad idea of Edus, Beduma wie Edus for seinen Meir, dass sie allein haben das gesehen, just like you have physical Edus. They reveal something that you've never known before. So too, what's the idea? What does it mean? Edus over here, that Mitzad, Dashpov, higher the Seder Shtashlos, that's how you're able to have these scholars of both Muz, Min, Zeh, Gleibin. Okay, fine. So we explained exactly how Piruchni is, what does it mean that Avram says Yitzchak? What's the big deal? We asked the question, what's the big deal that they look alike? Usually every son looks like the father. There's some similarity. So that I've explained that because Beruchni is, since in their personalities, the way that Hashem made them, one was Chesed, one was Gvura. So, and the fact that they are like that in the Tchunas HaNefesh, that should resemble also how their physical appearance comes out. So the Chiddush is that Mitzad, because the Tzon Ador were making fun, and they were laughing, so what Hashem do? Also, Hashem had to make that even the Tchunas HaNefesh resembled. How is it possible? Either one's Chesed, one's Gvura. The answer is because when Chesed and Gvura are working together, for example, you have a lot of exactly complement each other, so then it works very, very well. When you have somebody who just wants to give, and you have somebody, you have that, you have partners. You have a partner who's risk, and then you have another partner who says, listen, calm down, think it through. That partner, the Gvura guy, he's not going to take that risk. He doesn't think big, but he's that guy who's going to, hold you back in a good way. Compliments. Okay, so the Rebbe says this. We have 10 minutes. Your other fun by where the sinner is. We can learn the following lesson concerning our Avodah. Since you do it, the Thomas Avram Yitzchak Yaakov read Angeruf and Alvis, while they the Sherish Mugger from Kol Achas and the Shamas Yisrael. It's known that Avram Yitzchak and Yaakov are called Alvis because they are the root and source of every single Jewish soul. Und die Pchina von jeder von die Alvis kommt Yerusha la Kol Echad and Yisrael ben Bneiam Achren b'chol Davider Achrei b'chol Davider is by jeder Yidin darf sein die Avodah von alle drei Alvis. Why do they call our fathers? Because every single Yid, their Sherish and Mokar and Shamis comes from Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Therefore, every Yid must engage in the modes of the Avodah of these three Alvis. For this movement, as der Tsar Cluster Ponem Chuli scholars from Chesed Gvura can and darf sein jeder Yidin. Look me wie steht in Tanya, Bchiet Kibli Boim Sitchdo, Vechedlet Kibli Boim Sitchdo. Now, so every single Yid has to have these modes of Avodah and these attributes. And now it's understood that every Yid can and must combine Chesed and Gvura, as expressed by the statement Hashem made Yitzchak's facial appearance. Now, an example of this could be found in Tanya. It says that weeping is lodged in one side of my heart, and joy is lodged in the other side. What does that mean? This is combination, transcends limitation of nature and the entire creation. The way Chesed and Gvura is, the way Seder Shtashlos looks at it, they're very, very different. My master free as Avi Yiddish Zusammen can sein mit Midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu Bavad, nor in Avidas Hashem, Itn Yana Ya'ila. Like it says in Sifri, it's only the way Hashem, for love and fear, can coexist. Only within the realm of Avidas Hashem, and not within worldly matters.
If there's even play on tickle. Tell you more maybe the word the best.
Right. Yeah. Now, however, within the example, like we said from Tanya, weeping is lodged, there are two levels. You have Aleph, the Meridas al Zayin, Dorshtik by Nacht, with the Simcha Shabbos. So you have bitterness, Dorshtik by Nacht, bitterness on Thursday night and joy on Shabbos, Dorshtik by Nacht and the Simcha Shabbos. And then you have HaKoshe Yesed, the Meridas, mit Simcha al Zayin, zusammen mit Vasachas, Bibalas Yada Yid, is a Yiddish from the Alves. Was a Yiddish nimmt doch als, bemele kann jeder eine Alkoponen von ihm einstellen sein, seder euch in dem Eufen. Now, he says that the more challenging approach is bitterness and joy is unison. Since all Yidden are Yorshim of the Avis, and the Yiddish inherits everything, every Yid is able, and at least occasionally, to achieve this second higher level, is to have the bitterness. First you have there's two levels. You have bitterness at night, and the Shabbos you're happy. And then the more challenging approach is you have bitterness and joy coming together. And since everybody's a Yerush, so we have, first of all, doesn't matter what your personality is or where you're holding, Hashem gives you the ability to have this iskalos of joy and happiness at the same time. Okay. Now is an additional lesson that is learned from here. As Avram Helis Yitzchak, hat doch der Eberste gekehrt machen mit der Klaster Panner von Avram dem Yitzchak. Das ist aber viele Betel Seichel schwerer. Wie steht given bei Peil zur Klaster Panner von Yitzchak dem Avram. Now, this that everyone attested that Avram father Yitzchak, Hashem at the outset could have made Avram's face resemble Yitzchak. Alpi nature, for reason of nature. Doing so would have been even more daunting than what Hashem actually did. He made Yitzchak's facial appearance resemble Avram. Now, what's the other from the Kolel is what is this lesson to every single person? Shas min hat for sich an Aveda was ken getan werden und einem von die zwei Kavim, Kava Chesed and Kava Gevura. When you have a choice, you can either do it in a kind way or a rough way. Which says Asavet Belche von Zeh to Oiskleim. So now you have a doubt. What should I do? Should I be tough with him? Should I like him? Should I be excessive with him? Different Breichers and Kava Chesed. So first is when you have a choice, either to do Kava Chesed or Kava Gevura, always choose Kava Chesed. Al der Zev steht in Tanya bekehrt was as Bashas bin is Makar by Yidin is Levazah is hispik Skar Mitzvahs Avasarim is V'chula Hayvula Yuchel Karav Teda Rabbeinu Hashem like the Rebbe in Tanya that when a person attempts to draw another closer to Torah observance instead of chastising him like the Rebbe in Pergamon Beis, not only has the person not forfeited the merit of the mitzvah of neighborly love, but perhaps thereby the person will be able in the end to draw the other one close to the Torah and Avodas Hashem. Right, that was always the Rebbe's approach. Always doesn't matter either as an Hashem, you have to be kind. Doesn't matter what his shittas are. Doesn't matter what his philosophy is. Doesn't matter. You always have to have the kama ches. Ches. Inyan anal aslib der Teine von Letzena Adar hat man bewartet wenn Tempe besiedelt der Staatsschluss von min or man hat gemacht and plastered panov. The Yitzchak dem Avram. Now this that Hashem made a miracle that the facial expressions look like Avram. Is the kasher eichen von your foot when secha chutza. But God says. Das angeblich das Kistel lehrers Pashatildus falt erst allemal Chedish Kistel but the Shabbos Rahman Chedish Kistel. So we can connect this with Gittis Kistel with stats when your Futzum Sefer started. Der Chedish Agula in welche hat sich aufgetan der Ehe von your Futzum Sefer Chutz. Steht in Zera as in Tedes and Faran Gufi Tede guided Tede and Schwarz der Reise Rosen der Reise. It says in Zera that the Torah comprises you have the body which is the revealed part of Torah and you have the soul which is the secrets of Torah. Api said the Staatsschluss seinen sehen Schwarz der Reise Guf der Reise der Chedish Schwebes in den Jahren. Und jeder von sie hat in sich seine Efen, Ufer der Reise ist beginnen, Schwarz der Reise bellen, kommen von dem Namen Rosen, say this Bashasman is Megala, wird es say. Now, you have the Torah has two parts, seemingly and they're different. Each part has its own approach. The body of the Torah is revealed, whereas the soul of the Torah is concealed. This is also understood. Secrets, when something is revealed, it's no longer a secret. Now, this Kistel is Machri is your Futzum and a Sefer Futzum. So what this Kistel declares? That your wellspring shall spread to the outside. As the Mayanas from Pnimis Ateres on Nimshach is Galabern and an Eifim from Afotza and Eifim Chutza, which means that the wellspring shall be spread outside. The wellsprings of the inner dimension of Torah shall be revealed, publicized, spread even to the outside. Reisem of them was Chassidus Chabas hat darauf getragen Pnimis Ateres in Avona Vasel gefällt von wieder das was far dem Alter Leben ist und Afilo bei dem Alter Leben Gufa. Far Peterburg is not given as they feel these lavish passages. What's Chassidus Chabad? That the Pnimis Ateres could be in an understanding way. Because Chassidus Chabad mod the Friedrich beschreibt, wir sollen lernen Chassidus Passagen in demselben Efen, wie man lernt das Züge in die Glede, der Futze von Limmerats. When the Friedrich said, you have to learn Chassidus in a way of understanding, like you learn Nigla. Is nächste Losem, want man, wir sollen mehr für seine Mayanas Chutza, schütte zu Azulas, was gefindt sich in Chutza. Und noch mehr, man sagt auf Chutza und kein Bullet, das heißt, as I feel the Chutza Yesu Tachlin, dafür mehr für seine Mayanas, which means you have to spread out Chassidus in a way so as far that it has to be Mamish Mephis the Mayanas. Okay, one more paragraph. The Chura is Satmir Gdel B'Yesus. So the Rebbe says, seemingly this is baffling. I feel that Nigla Zandal Hakbolas Bisk, Meshagosel, the Nosham, the Kim, and the Fol, the Saper, Chuki, Rizogme, Futzwan, Chatzef, even the learning of Torah, the revealed dimension has limitations. It says, but to the wicked, Hashem said, how dare you recite my laws? How can we say your wellspring shall spread to the outside? If them kommt das, Mashas studiert on in that Zim von Yidin, was is Mushrish and Atmos rechnen sich nicht mit Agbos von Toldos. Und der Ebersch ist Mahapif mit Sir Class the Bunch of Yitzchak, soll sein David Avram. As Eich in Primi Satera was mit Sad City Toldos is the Helen Guru Yitzchak so kommen begillt has. So therefore, what does it say? We have taught that when something touches the essence of a Yid, which is rooted in Hashem's essence, we mustn't consider the limitation of the natural order. Hashem made Yitzchak's facial expressions resemble Avram to the inner dimension of Torah, which on account of the chain-like creation is considered Gvura Yitzchak shall become revealed Chesed Avram. When the Alter Rebbe sagt, dass if them is mechaven der Moshel von Ben Melech, was is sehr rein geworden, bis is nicht gewähnt kein Hitze, nur zu Zerreiben an Even Teve, was ist gewohnt Kester Melech, und was in dem Even Teve ist tolle a ganze Schenkheit von Leser Atara Machtira, und geben das Trinken dem Ben Melech, hat der Melech gesagt, as wie groß is der Jäger von Kester Melech, is das aber kein Werfes, da gab dem Leben von seinem Sohn. As you know, the Alter Rebbe gives this famous mashal about a sick prince. He was so ill that there was no resource. The only way was to crush a gem and fix the king's crown. And the crown was the beauty of the king's crown, and it was dependent on daft and the gem, which needed to be given to the prince to drink. So the king said that regardless of the precious of the royal crown, it was utterly worthless in comparison to the life of his son. According to the law, it's absolutely forbidden for anyone to use even the king's crown. Who does meaning God some abed ikar kesed them Ben HaMelech. So why you lose the whole crown for the Ben HaMelech? Alpha Biaz there's a Ben HaMelech is a doch nit der Melech. He's a son of a king, but he's not a king. But the Mashas is reared on Chai Bnei Belchas Musaf and the Melech. But both Al Cheshbon. So when we're talking about the son's king, Al Cheshbon is go away. And the Alter Rebbe is noch meisev in them gewaltige Inyan. I feel the Bashas der Matzah from Ben Melech is as they feel. Verärgern geworden, business is a subject. Sie wird mit Kabel sein, die mehr nur vor, viel hat Tippem. It's a subject bechalv, he's got to be healed. But that's wegen, es geht da zum Zerreib, im Even Teve, was Ruba wird weggehen lieb, most of it's going to go to waste. But Tomer wird ein Trappen in Ganzen, reingehen, der Tisch, Piefschau, Ben Melech. Und durch den Misaskus von ihm, Futzwein, bringt das dem Kossi Mark, dann machen wir Schitten, wie Minimum. Hey, 2 Jahre.